and it's not. I don't have the delay, so maybe it's on him.
Yeah.
I don't know. What am I doing here?
You're starting the
There we
show.
go.
What happens if a situation arises that you were unprepared for? A situation such as a blizzard, a tornado, or being locked down due to a virus. Put yourself in any possible situation that could arise. Now ask yourself, what would you do? Where would you go? What do you need? Are you ready? Because what if tomorrow?
Welcome to another episode of the What If Tomorrow podcast. I'm Philip.
And I'm Mark.
And sorry about the late start. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're rolling. We're going to make do with what we have tonight. Real quick, we have a special guest, but I want to run this real quick.
Hey, this is Mark with What If Tomorrow and What If Tomorrow on the Fringe. Be sure to check out our website, whatiftomorrowmedia.com, and look at our cool merch. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, posters, and more. Our affiliates are Duke Cannon, EMP Shield, My Patriot Supply, and Conflicted the Game. Or check out buymeacoffee.com/whatiftomorrow and buy us a coffee. And as always, be sure to like, comment, and share on both Facebook and YouTube. It helps get our content out to others and help our channel grow. Now on with the show.
All right. Like I said, we have a special guest, author and podcaster, Mark Goodwin. I've really gotten involved in a lot of his audiobooks. They're kind of a Christian bent to it, but it's totally preparedness. And everything that he has that I've listened to is the I guess you could say the techniques or the tools that the characters in his books use. It's very sound. So I thought I would invite him on and come on and chat, and we'll welcome him in. How's it going, Mark? How's it going, Mark?
Philip, Mark, thanks for having me, guys. It's a pleasure to be on.
It's a
Glad
pleasure to have you.
Glad to. That echoes back.
I guess it's me.
I guess so.
It is what
okay. That's okay. We'll work through it.
So,
Yep. So backstage, we didn't get to chat very much, Mark. Like I said in the intro, though, all hold on. Hey, Sylvian, how you doing? Yeah, this isn't working. But like I said, that your characters in your books use. Everything is sound logic. Hey, Sylvian, how you doing, sir? And it blew me away. I mean, your messages. There's no smut. There's no anything bad. I mean, like you hear in most literature nowadays, and I consume a ton of audiobooks. And I'm I don't know. I've burned up a lot of your books. I don't know. I'm in the what is it? The Days of Elijah right now. I'm in Wormwood.
Okay.
Went through the beginning of Sorrows trilogy. Oh Lord. Let's see. Black Swan. Seven Cows, Ugly and Gaunt. In the Days of Noah. So far, my favorite, and to me is the Seven Cows, Ugly and Gaunt series. I love that. I mean, it's so good.
Thank you so much.
For me,
I had fun writing that one.
It was good. I mean, it really was. A lot of food for thought. And for me, for audiobooks, a lot of times I'll listen to them once and I won't listen to them again. This one I intend to go back and re-listen to the whole series.
Oh, thank you. That's a high compliment.
So, yeah, definitely. There's very few that I do. But anyway, I want to welcome you. And we'll just have a conversation where, you can see by our nicknames up here, we're pretty informal. We have fun. We have you name it, But we try to bring a different perspective to preparedness. Just a little history about the show. I know you'd mentioned through email that you listened to an episode, and we try to take a lighter-hearted look, but we do get kind of serious sometimes. But I just wanted to invite you on to have a conversation and get your take on a lot of the things that are going on right now.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, and happy to share whatever I've got.
So you want to talk about what's going on in the news right now?
Oh wow! So yeah, the Trump shooting. I guess that's what that's
Oh boy.
that's kind of a historic event. And I'll tell you, I've watched a lot of video. I've watched a lot of coverage of it. Seen a lot of the video of that people have taken, yelling at the Secret Service, yelling at the cops, shooter on the roof, gun, and to crickets. So I mean, yeah, it obviously at first glance it looks like they could have had some kind of a stand down order, but I don't know. I mean, who would have been running that? I mean, it's not the deep state, because if the deep state's running that, I mean, we know from JFK that if you're gonna kill a president, you could have one patsy, but you're gonna have multiple shooters. You're gonna make sure the job gets done. I don't think it's going to be one 20-year-old kid that's probably just trained on his farm. Although I guess if Trump hadn't have turned his head at the last minute, it looks like it would have been a kill shot from what I'm seeing. So maybe we're completely being lied to about who the kid is. I don't know, but I also think that you can't underestimate incompetence. And these Secret Service, they're under the DHS. That's Mayorkas under the Biden administration. So, I think it's also possible that it's exactly what it looks like. Number one, we've got a young man. So here's the official story. We've got a young man who graduated from public school. He was bullied. In public school, you're taught that you evolved out of the primordial stew, that there's no absolute right and wrong. Everybody makes up their own right and wrong. There's no definite morality. You've got no purpose, no meaning, and you're a product of a godless society. So what should we expect out of a person like that? Romans 1 says, it says, the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen. And Psalms 19 says, the heavens declare the glory of the Lord. So it's this idea that there is a God, there is a creator is self-evident. And we're teaching our children that that's not true. Evolution, when we say we don't teach our children religion in the schools, that's not true, because evolution is a religious worldview. It's the religious worldview of an atheist. So,
Yep.
So when
even Darwin was very religious. Which he's probably rolling over.
He might, yeah, he's religious, but yeah, you're right, he is religious, but he doesn't believe in the God of the Bible that created everything in 7 days. then Romans 1, it goes on to say that God's given us over to debased minds, being filled with all unrighteousness, sexual immorality, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, strife, deceit. And so I think that maybe he's just a product of society.
I
There could be something to that.
Yeah. And then it goes on to say that that God gave them up to vile passions, with men and women abandoning natural relations and turning to homosexuality. So now we've got this DEI cult in government, especially in the Biden administration. We've got and so with that, we're not allowed to tell a 5 foot tall woman that she's incapable of being the bodyguard for a 6'3" man. You saw the gaggle of women trying to shield Trump in vain, right? So, and then who's running the security plan for Secret Service? It's somebody that was promoted because they used the right pronouns. They went to Charlie's coming out party. They attended Richard and Scott's wedding. They sent a get well soon card when Lisa had her transition surgery, and Jim, the guy who rolls his eyes when it's time for sensitivity training, he can shoot the wing off a fly at 1,000 yards, but he's never going to be in charge of anything. So this is all part and parcel of living in a godless society, and it's all part of the slow motion societal collapse.
Yep. I would definitely agree with that. Yesterday, at church, we studied out of Galatians 5.
Mm-hmm.
In 5:1, it stand fast, therefore, in the liberty by which Christ has made us free, and do not be entangled again with the yoke of bondage.
Yeah.
I think we lost Phil.
Oh.
Oh, there he is. You still with us, buddy?
I hear ya.
It's a. You're absolutely right. It's a moral issue, in my opinion. People have gotten away from understanding the morals. And I would venture to say I'm a product of the public school system. I didn't grow up in church. I didn't accept Christ until I was in my 20s. Then I ran. But even then, there was a sense of morals. Growing up in the 80s.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. And like you, there's so many questions about what happened the other day.
I don't think I trust anybody.
What's that?
I don't think I trust anybody.
Oh, I know. You don't know what to believe.
No.
I sometimes I think that's part of the plan.
Yeah.
I certainly think that the CIA they sow intentional conspiracy theories that some people will just kind of grasp onto and take it and run with it, and then when they try to get into something serious about saying, hey, this medical treatment, because I guess you guys are on YouTube, so we gotta watch our language. We gotta self-censor, don't we? This medical treatment hasn't been tested on humans. In fact, this medical treatment hasn't been tested on animals, because last time they tried to test a medical treatment similar to this one on animals, all the animals died. So they won't test this one on animals because they think all the animals are going to die if they do. Maybe we should wait and see. Maybe I don't want to be the first guy in line. So that when you
Absolutely.
say something sensible like that, you've already been discredited because of and I apologize if if you guys buy into it, but like the flat Earth theory, I think that one's a little, a little hard to prove just because of the way and not because I believe the people that told me the Earth is round, but because when I take a little my daughter's globe-shaped ball that's got like the globe on it, and I revolve that around a light bulb. You have to have a three-dimensional object revolving around a light source to get 12 hours of sunlight at the equator all year round, and 1 day of complete darkness on the North Pole, and one day of complete darkness every year on the South Pole. Of course, the flat earthers say there's no South Pole, but southern Chile, it's pretty close.
Right.
Phil and I have been high enough in the air to see the curve of the Earth. So we're not really. I can't see how the flat Earth is.
Oh, so you guys have seen the curve, because that's their thing, is where's the curve?
Right.
All right, so you guys have been up there and you saw the curve. All right, good. Good to know.
You don't have to go very high to start seeing it.
You don't really know. There's built in the U.S.
Good. And
I know that theory, man. We had a guy offer to come on, and I didn't want to entertain it. And I was like, no. I mean, it was right after we first started, and I talked to Marshall. Hey, you want to have this guy on? And Mark's like, well, I'll argue with him. So we wound up not having him. But because they, in my opinion, that's a religion too.
Yeah.
But I think the CIA intentionally puts stuff like that out there that people will just grab onto and run with it, so that when they're talking about serious issues, people don't pay attention to them. When you start asking about, what is jet fuel? Does it really get hot enough to melt steel? Do buildings implode at free fall speed, as if there were no resistance in between the floors, and pancake down straight into their own footprint? And can you fly two planes into two buildings and have three of them pancake perfectly into their own footprint? Is that logical? So there's stuff like that that they don't want people to be able to get people's attention on, I think.
And the CIA even started the term conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
So
we've done several shows on conspiracy theories that turned out to be true.
Yeah. Yeah, they're they're getting popular, aren't they?
There's a ton.
Yeah. Back to if I can go back a little bit.
It goes all the way back to right after World War II.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of people that say we knew that the attack was coming from Japan, and that there were, radars were intentionally switched off so that could happen, so that we could get the political will to get in the war. So
I won't say it's not true.
Yeah. Back to what I was saying about being in a godless society, and what the Bible says about that, and what we can expect as the fallout or the outcome of that. Deuteronomy 28, it talks about the curses for turning from God. In verse 28 of Deuteronomy 28 says, "The Lord will strike you with madness and blindness and confusion of mind, So, and I understand a lot of people consider the Bible to be very little more than a book of fanciful fairy tales. But think about that confusion of mind. Have you seen Joe Biden speak lately? And we've got kids. Kids don't know if they're boys or girls. We've got men that think that maybe they'd be able to lactate and give birth. We've got the president of the United States referring to Zelensky as Putin. He referred to his VP as Donald Trump. He gets lost, falls downstairs, falls upstairs, mumbles incoherently. So he's the icon of America right now. And the icon of America is the epitome of confusion of mind. So that's another place in the Bible where it's said if you go down this road and you ignore my principles and my precepts, this is what's going to happen to your nation. Jeremiah 7, it's one of those places where God's rebuking ancient Israel for murdering their children. And anytime in history you have a promiscuous society, the natural outcome is unwanted pregnancies. And it's going to lead to some form of infanticide, whether you call it Molech worship or whether you call it Planned Parenthood. So God declared because of this, he would turn the land into the valley of slaughter. And history students know that the northern kingdom was sacked by the Assyrians and the southern kingdom by the Babylonians. The famine was so great that people resorted to cannibalism. So if we're in for that degree of punishment from God for killing our children, then it makes sense to start getting prepared for that. The Guttmacher Institute, which is they're a kind of a leftist organization, but they're the ones that track how many abortions we have in America, and they reported for 2023 1,026,000 abortions, and that's despite Roe v. Wade being overturned, and it's the highest number since 2012. So we don't have any kind of national repentance happening right now, and despite that was great, and I think that's kind of Trump's high watermark was getting those Supreme Court justices in. They didn't stand up for him for January 6th, but they did overturn Roe v. Wade. So hopefully he's going to be a little bit more keen to what's going on in the swamp this time around. If he gets back in, it looks like he will. But I think that a lot of the swamp draining didn't happen last time the way that we were told that it would.
Right, and I think they're doubling down.
Yeah,
I do.
So. And Isaiah 1, it talks about the corrupt judges of Israel and the wickedness of the people, and it issues a multitudes of judgments against them. And in verse 22, God says that your silver will become dross. So back to that idea of corrupt judges. In 1963, the Supreme Court decided the Abington School District versus Shemp, and that effectively banned Bibles and prayer in public schools. In that year, in 1963, quarters, dimes, and half dollars like this one right here were made of 90% silver. 18 months later, the U.S. Mint quit using silver. They switched to nickel, copper, manganese, and zinc. So God said your silver will become dross. Do you know what dross is? When a silversmith purifies silver, he extracts copper, nickel, manganese, and zinc. Our silver has literally become dross. So your fanciful book of fairy tales is batting 3 for 3 right there on those prophecies. So pretty accurate. For
do you ever listen or read Jonathan Cahn?
I do, yeah. So I got a little caught up in the Shemitah fever in 2015,
Right.
and it was kind of a nothing burger, kind of the dictionary definition of a nothing burger. But yeah, I do listen to him, and I think he makes some really really valid points, and I still like him. And he said the whole time, hey, it could be nothing, but it also looked like some of the dates in there that he might have used when he was showing like the past Shemitahs looked like some of those maybe could have been a little bit massaged.
Right. I don't know. I like what he says.
I do too.
And it makes sense, especially. Was it Return of the Gods or something like that? I can see what he's talking about.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, I think he's got some incredibly good points. Yeah, I really do. And anybody that went out and overspent on Shemitah is, that's their own thing. And if you were getting ready for Shemitah and you got all that stuff and you got all hunkered down, hey, you were ready, and you still got that stuff. Hopefully,
Right.
I guess if you got a lot of beans in 2015, they're probably getting, about 8 years is about what you can get on dried beans. So they're probably, hopefully you didn't put those in the same bucket with your rice like I did. Because then you got to go through, not mixed together, not the rice and the beans all mixed together, but separated in bags, but in the same bucket. Now you're gonna unstack all the buckets, pull all the beans out, and then don't put new beans in there. Fill it up with rice, because the rice is probably gonna last forever, and the beans, it's 8 years sounds like it's forever from now, but it's not, and it sneaks up on you. And now you got a bunch of 8-year-old beans that probably aren't gonna be any good. So.
Yep. Yeah, I know. When Mark and I started this, we're rolling up on 4 years, right, Mark? If I remember, at 2020.
4 years, yeah.
We got caught with our pants down, kind of, because we got complacent because of Trump being in office. Things were going good, and then 2020 hit, and we're like, we got off track.
Yeah.
I don't know that we can get a chance to really talk backstage. But we live on 10 acres. We're starting a homestead.
Good.
And we've got hogs and chickens and rabbits and growing a garden. And the best part is I don't have any neighbors.
Good.
But had we not got complacent, we'd be farther along than what we are.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people kind of got complacent, just kind of feeling the pulse of people that listen to the show and things like that. And Mark and I, we've been teaching a lot of just basic preparedness. We probably touch on it once a year.
Mm-hmm.
Your 3 days, 3 weeks, or 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's pretty standard.
Right.
And on YouTube, we have tried. When we first started, we were doing like building a bug out bag, and things like that. We kind of got away from YouTube, except for the show. But everything, like I said earlier, all the characters in your book, it's sound doctrine, in my opinion. Do you? And I'm guessing just from a few things that you've said, are you living what you write?
Yeah, I am, and I did. I got to talk a little bit with Mark right before we came on, and so we've got kind of a little homestead set up in North Carolina, and we still go back to Florida sometimes, but we kind of split the time between the two, because as I was telling Mark, Florida it's 22 million people on a sandbar. So if the balloon goes up, there's some spots here in the center of the state, where you could get by, but but man, without electricity, without air conditioning, you need a lot of solar panels, a lot of batteries.
Yep.
And the batteries there, they last for a while and then they're gone. So that's not something I've got solar in North Carolina, but that was the last thing I did because I didn't want to depend on that. I wanted that to be that's kind of the luxury item. Right. And we've got a spring with water coming out of the ground with no
Nice.
So even if all the pumps and everything go off, I can go stick up a bucket down there, and I've got water that doesn't have to be filtered that I can just drink. And
That's awesome.
yeah, we do the same thing. We don't have pigs because I go back and forth, so I have to have things that can get carted back and forth, kind of like like the Barnum and Bailey circus. And so for what you can fit in a pickup truck is basically rabbits and chickens.
Right.
And then I've got bees, and then I don't haul the bees back and forth. They stay up there, and I just I try to get there often enough to check on them. And then we garden and we do canning, and I got a buddy that sometimes raises pigs, and I do. I'm from Kentucky originally, so one of the big culinary delights of Kentucky is country ham. It's where you take a ham and you coat it in salt and sugar and smoke it with a cold smoker with hickory wood. So I love doing that, and we can and. We've got a fruit orchard. We've got apple trees, nice. Cherries, and pears, and blackberry bushes, raspberry bushes, elderberry, nice. That kind of stuff.
We've got we've got an apple tree, but come to find out, if they're around a lot of cedar trees, which I have a ton in my front yard.
Oh, really?
They can get this. It's called cedar apple rust.
Oh, wow!
And it kills your apple tree.
Oh no!
And the last couple of years, we've been in drought conditions.
Yeah.
And it's killed our peach trees.
Oh no!
So I'm like, yeah.
So
we kind of got to start from scratch there. It is.
No, we've lost chickens to coccilia and foxes, and I've had the one of the older chickens kill one of the chicks. Lost one time just bringing them down to Florida because it got so hot in the back of the truck. Rabbits, we lost rabbits to coccilia one time, and it's rough. And
it is.
And it's for the people that think that, okay, well, when I see things getting bad, I'm going to go run out and buy a homestead and some animals and start a garden, and they've never done it. And particularly if you're changing climates, or you could be a great gardener in Florida, and then that's got one kind of climate and sandy soil, and then you go up to North Carolina where it's all clay. It's a completely you're farming on another planet.
Yeah.
So you have to not only you have to know how to do it, you have to know how to do it on that property, wherever the place you're going to be is. So
it takes years to get it right.
Yeah, it's not something you're gonna learn in a year. That you're going to see things getting bad, and you're going to run out and do it. So it's something that if that's something people have been thinking about, you need to get on the stick with it, because it's not getting any cheaper.
No,
and I know we haven't gotten into economics yet, and I know Philip, you emailed me right when I guess it was the day that Saudi Arabia announced that they were that they were going to join Enbridge with which is the BIS's CBDC International Trade Settlement Platform, which I think China's the one that initiated that, but it's kind of Saudi Arabia letting the world know that we're not going to keep selling selling oil strictly in dollars, which has been the agreement since Kissinger got them to agree to the petrodollar system, and it's not just Saudi Arabia. We've signaled to the world that the dollar's not a safe haven anymore because we've confiscated Russian assets. We've used them to fund the war. I think maybe that was probably pushing Russia out of SWIFT. That was probably the first domino, because once we did that, we forced Russia to settle oil in something other than dollars. And prior to that, when you bought oil, you had to first exchange your currency for dollars to buy oil, and that's not the case anymore. And so since the war in Ukraine, that's one of the reasons we've seen inflation just skyrocket. That's why people can't afford a house. We've got several people in our homeschool co-op that have decent jobs, they're responsible working people, and they can't afford a house. They're either living in trailers. We knew a family that was living in a camper for a while. I think they're in an apartment now, but they can't afford a house. They're stuck renting, which is, they're never going to get ahead because rent's going to keep going up too, and eventually they're going to get choked out. It's this constant downward class migration, where if you were upper middle income, now you're middle income, and if you're middle income, now you're poor, and if you were poor before, you're off the ladder now. You're destitute.
Yep.
And
it's by design.
Yeah, sure. I think so. Because we knew what was going to happen when we kicked Russia out of SWIFT and when we confiscated their U.S. dollar-denominated assets. We knew exactly what was going to happen because, we've been defending that and I guess it's some kind of a globalist move that said it's time for the dollar to retire, for us to have a global reset, kind of a Klaus Schwab kind of thing, And when they put that video out, The World in 2030, it said the U.S. is no longer going to be the world's global superpower. But before that, Gaddafi from Libya, he tried to settle oil for gold, and we imported some freedom on him real quick. Saddam, he wanted to sell oil for euros, and he got liberated. But nuclear superpowers like Russia and China, you can't do that. You can't tell them that they can't sell whatever they want to sell in, and so now they've got BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Those were the charter members, and they've just brought in a lot of other nations, including Saudi Arabia and Iran. So by joining BRICS, that's the Saudis signaling that they're going to get on board with whatever type of international trade currency that BRICS comes up with, and they're planning a type of trade CBDC of their own that's rumored to be possibly partially gold backed. But back to what I was saying about people are just getting squeezed out and unable to even afford a house. The Federal Reserve website, FRED, which is Federal Reserve Economic Data, that's the St. Louis Fed Fed that maintains that site. They say the M2 money supply is 21 trillion. Pre-COVID, that was 15 trillion. So that's a $6 trillion increase from before COVID, according to them. COVID Money Tracker, I think it's covidmoneytracker.org, says it was about 12 trillion new dollars put into circulation from COVID relief. So that's almost enough to double. That's almost double the money supply of what M2 was pre-COVID. But you can't just count M2 when you're looking at money supply. You can't just count M2 and say, okay, well, that's the money supply. That's what they tell you the money supply is. But we've got, what's U.S. debt? It's 35 trillion. 35 trillion is what? That's the amount of U.S. treasuries, right? So every time they borrow a dollar, they issue a dollar's worth of treasuries, right? So 35 trillion in U.S. treasuries, that's an asset on somebody else's book. So,
right.
Like if you buy $100 worth of U.S. treasuries, that's as good as a dollar bill. You know, that's as good as a $100 bill. So that's $35 trillion in dollar-denominated assets. So you got to add that on to the 21 trillion to really have a good idea of what the actual money supply is. So 21 trillion, the M2 plus the 35, so that's 56 trillion sloshing around out there, and that doesn't even count all the paper money that's been shipped out to the rest of the world. Zimbabwe, they use U.S. dollars now, and they're using actual paper U.S. dollars because this is what their currency used to look like. In 2008, this was their currency, and in case you can't read that, it says $100 trillion. And so in 2008, $100 trillion Zimbabwe would get you a soda about. So, so we think
Weimar Republic over again.
Yeah. So we think $35 trillion in debt's a lot, but we can print our way out of that real quick, and then 35 trillion won't even get you a bag of groceries.
Right.
Because you think about that would pay off the U.S. debt, and you'd have $65 trillion left over in change.
Right.
So
Yeah,
dollars are a really bad way to count your net worth. Things that have value are, if you can keep them alive, a peach tree or an apple tree or a pig or a rabbit or a chicken, a spring that water comes out of, a basement full of canned goods, a bucket full of rice, a bucket full of dried beans, This was
absolutely.
That's going to be worth more.
in 1908. This was a $20 bill. So it's in dollar denominated. It's significantly more than $20 now. I think today.
Oh yeah.
I think today's gold price is 24.25, something like that.
Yeah.
So and then so when you see M2 money supply, it's an unusable number, and another unusable number is CPI. It's just completely full of lies. There used to be a website called Shadow Stats. Well, Shadow Stats is still up, but they used to calculate CPI, and they'd base it on 1980 metrics. And I think the last year they did it was 2023 was the last time they did it, May of 2023, and at that time, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they showed CPI inflation at 4% using current metrics. If you were using 1980 metrics, May of 2023's inflation number would have been 12%. So triple what they were telling us. So BLS is right now, they're telling us it's 3%. So triple that number is 9%. Maybe when you go to the grocery, does that sound right? About 9% maybe? Year over year?
Maybe.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, yeah. But even if it was 0%, 2 years ago, they were telling us it was 9%, so it was probably triple that, so 27%. So even if it was 0 right now, it's still 27% over what it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's got to go negative for that 27% from 2 years ago to go down. So
Yep.
it's just
I love
lies, and more lies.
Yeah. I
And
love how
in
in the news, last week it came out. Inflation cooled to 3%.
Yeah, but that's 3%
they're not
on top of the
adding-
9%, on top of the 6%, on top of the 5%, on top of whatever it was the year before that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And with the U.S. government running a $2 trillion deficit, all the while the rest of the world's demanding fewer and fewer dollars, it doesn't really much matter what the Fed does with interest rates. Inflation's going to go parabolic.
Yeah. That's absolutely true. It already happened.
Yeah. And, medium home prices are $438,000 right now.
That's crazy.
And I think when we really see the crack up boom, I think we're going to look back and say, "Wow, that was a steal." We're gonna be reminiscent. I'll be back on What If Tomorrow podcast, and I'll be saying, "Wow, guys, you remember last time I was on? You could fill an entire grocery cart for $1,000."
Right.
Last time I was on, gold was only $2,400 an ounce.
Yeah.
Well, by that
Those,
time,
those were the
radio.
good old days. People
Yep.
need to wake up. Your kids are
Yep.
they're gonna live in a nightmare dystopia if you're not a billionaire, or they don't have their own little spot where they can scratch out a living subsistence farming, with some chickens and goats and bees and whatever.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah,
the
well-
best. So the economic scenario that's baked into the cake. That's if we get on our knees tomorrow and we repent to God and we say, we're not going to kill it. We're going to ban abortion. We're bringing the Bible and prayer back into schools. Even if we do all of that, we've still got this economic reckoning coming because David, he cheated with Bathsheba. But he still had to pay the piper. God still, demanded his unborn child of him. And he still lost that child. He forgave him, but he still had the consequences of his sins and his unwise decisions that he still had to pay for. And there's no way out of this economic reality. This is happening. This is happening right now. We're watching it happen. It's in slow motion. It's unfortunate that it's going so slowly. It's fortunate if you recognize it and you're taking advantage of it and you're doing what you can to prepare your family and yourself to get through to the other side. But it's unfortunate in that it's kind of moving so slow that a lot of people don't really feel it. And they're just like, wow, I wish I could have bought a house, but oh well, I guess I'll just live in an apartment, and then oh well, I guess I'll just get a smaller apartment, and oh well, I guess I'll just live in a tent, So they kind of keep acclimating to the water like the proverbial boiling frog. Which I don't think is true. I think if you put a frog in the water, I think he's smart enough to jump out. I think they should change that to boiling humans. I think we're the only ones that would sit in there and allow ourselves to be boiled to death. I think most animals are smart enough to get out of the water.
Well, I'm beginning to think my animals are harder than me.
Yeah.
Yep. So also in your books, something I appreciate. We've done the economics. We've done a lot of Mark and I we touch a lot of on EMP. not scenario wise, but something I do appreciate in your books is all of your characters are part of a community. Last year, Mark and I, that was like our mantra: build your community.
Yeah.
So I mean,
can't
obviously,
survive
by your
all-
writing, it's important to you.
Uh-huh.
What's that, Mark?
I said you can't survive alone.
No. You need community.
Yeah, and that's something I thought. You hear these guys, these lone wolves.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go out and just do it by myself, and it's impossible. You can't do that.
Yeah,
That's failure, right?
it is. But at the same time, it's really, really difficult to get people to take preparedness seriously. I get so many readers that email me and they tell me everything that they're doing and trying to just really, it's a priority for them. But then in my own life, I've got very, very, very few people around me that take any heed to this, and they're really just kind of whistling past the graveyard, and they don't have a plan, and and good people, but just unfortunately they just don't see it, won't see it, or don't want it, because it takes sacrifices. Because if you're going to do this,
It does.
if you're going to take care of chickens and rabbits and bees and have a garden and cannon and all that stuff, there's a whole slew of other stuff that you can't do now, because that's going to take, because prepping or preparedness, or I think you guys said it on one of your shows that homesteading has kind of become the new prepping. I think prepping is kind of like you've got 3 months of food in your house, but then at some point you kind of come to the realization that after 3 months, what are you going to do? And kind of the next iteration of that is if you're really going to write out something that's longer than 3 months, you're going to have to be producing kind of the lion's share of everything you need, from fuel to food to water, to security. So it's this huge homesteading. We'll just say it all kind of one thing. Homesteading / prepping is this huge collection of hobbies. You're a solar enthusiast. You're a farmer. You're into canning and food preservation. You're a precious metals collector. You're into hunting and processing game. It's a huge collection of hobbies, and so there's not a whole so skiing and boating and all that kind of stuff is sort of out the window, because there's no money and time left for any of that kind of stuff. And even travel gets
right. Time.
It's hard to travel very very far, very long, when you've got a bunch of animals that need taken care of.
Yeah.
So a lot of people they're not willing to make the sacrifices. So that's tough, and it's tough because when you have a good community, a good people, and none of them have any interest in those things, because you can't feed all those people. I love them to death, but there's no way I can't give them my daughter's food. That would be a sin. It would be a sin for me to take the food out of her mouth to give to these people that are doing nothing.
I agree.
Mm-hmm. See, we've talked about it a few times here. For the longest time, because we bought this place for a community.
Yeah.
And if you want to be part of it, stockpile. If you want to store some, store it.
Yeah.
But I went for the longest time, like if somebody shows up and needs something, no, I'm sorry. I mean, even if somebody I care about, I'm sorry, but man, you didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything.
Right.
That's the way I looked at it for the longest time.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I thought to myself, I'm like, that's not me.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, well, what do we put back extra for somebody if they showed up? If they have a skill set or something we can use.
Right.
So it's kind of a conundrum.
Yeah,
who
I mean,
do
it's
you
a
let
pretty
in,
simple
who do you not?
formula, though. It's going to probably take you. I mean, in a worst case, you got to plan for worst case. I think that you mentioned EMP. I think that's worst case. The doctor. I used to do a podcast on prepperrecon.com for years and years before I had a kid in a homestead. you can't write and run a homestead and be any kind of a father. And something's got to go.
Right.
So the podcast was kind of the thing that went. But when I did have it, I had Dr. Peter Vincent Pry on from the Congressional EMP Commission, and they did a big study, and they said within 6 months, 90% of America would be dead. So, that first year, you got to survive the die-off, and that first year, you're really going to be your primary thing is going to be security, and you just need to have enough food that you don't need to produce any food for the first year, and that all assets can be thrown at security because it's going to be Mad Max times 10, and brutal, and people and so you got to be ready for that. And then the second year, you're going to be learning how to scale up your production of the stuff that you're already doing. And then by the third year, you're probably going to have, things should start to get a little easier. So you really need to be able to feed whoever you're going to bring in. You really need 2 million calories for each person. And, you can feed them all rice because, if you've got a farm, you can raise a few vegetables. You can supplement that with a little protein from your animals, and you can almost forage your vegetables just from eating dandelion greens and purslane and white clover and red clover and whatever it is. Plantain, you can eat plantain. There's a lot of stuff that you can get nutrition and vitamins and kind of vegetable stuff out of just foraging. But you need the calories, and the easy low hanging fruit for calories is rice, and you can get about 1 million calories worth of rice in 20 buckets. So 40 buckets of rice is 2 million calories. So that's one person. But now 40 buckets of rice takes up quite a bit of space. So you need the space for it. But if you got the space for it, you can just 40 buckets, that's one person. 80 buckets, that's 2 people. 120 buckets, that's 3 people, Most of us, though, we got family, and there's going to be, you got a niece or a nephew or somebody that you're not going to be able to say no to. So, that's the people, and biblically, that's your priority. So you got to plan for family first, and then, but that's the calculation. It's a pretty easy calculation, but you got to do it, and you got to have the space for it.
Yep. Yeah, you were talking about foraging, and we're trying to teach our kids, because we have, everywhere's got dandelions and clover.
Yeah. Oh, dandelions are
awesome. We have lamb's quarter.
Yeah.
And so we're teaching our kids, because I've got a 9 and a 7-year-old at home. I've got 2 older kids that are doing their thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I coached soccer in the spring and the fall for my son, my 9-year-old son, and he was out on the soccer field picking dandelions and eating them.
Yeah, you don't know what they're putting on that soccer field. I had to teach my daughter that.
What are you doing?
My daughter's she's been foraging since she's 7. She'll be 7 next month, but she's been foraging since she was 4. And she loves to, and when she was real little, Papa, can I eat? And she'd pick a clover flower, and I said, yeah, you can eat that. And she'd pick one of the sprouts from the middle of a plantain. Papa, can I eat? Yeah, you can eat that. And a dandelion flower. Yeah, I can eat that. And and then we'd go to like church, and she in the church parking lot, and she would know if she'd go to start eating something that she could eat at home, and I'd say no, because we don't know, they might spray poison on us, and then you got to explain it.
That's fair.
And so she learned it at 4 years old that most of our food's sprayed with poison. That's why we don't eat at McDonald's, and and that's why we eat organic and try to grow our own stuff and all that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think foraging and bushcraft are almost a forgotten art.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of going down the road of learning bushcraft. To where I'm competent with it.
Yeah.
I can start a fire and stuff like that, but I want to know more.
Right.
So, and I think that's another thing. If you're into preparedness, it's a constant education.
It is, and it's a good challenge.
You constantly have to learn.
There's a side of it that's a fun and good challenge, especially if you're kind of doing it for years and you just kind of get in the groove of it, and you're always kind of learning something new, and challenging yourself, and it keeps your mind active. So
it does.
There's a good side of it. I don't want to make it sound like it's a chore. I think for some people it would be. I think a lot of people, they're just not geared to that, and it would probably be a chore. But I enjoy most of it.
I do too.
Yeah. I guess the one thing that we probably haven't covered yet is war. We did touch on EMP. I think that threat's bigger now than it's been.
It really is.
In my lifetime.
Yep.
The United States, we started supplying long-range guided missiles to Ukraine for offensive attacks into Russian territory, into Russia proper. So far, they've been used to take out radar systems. Back at the beginning of July, one of these U.S.-supplied missiles was used to target a military airfield inside Russia. Russia's air defense system hit one of the missiles, and it diverted it to a nearby beach. This missile had cluster munitions on it, so it rained all these cluster munitions down on this Russian beach. I don't know if you guys saw the video. They had CCTV video that captured that, and you see the bombs just raining down in the water and on the sand. People running and grabbing their kids and running to get out of there, and explosions just popping off all over, and it killed 5 or 6 people and injured over 150. Days later, we had a General Dynamics plant in Louisiana where they manufacture munitions for those types of weapons, and they had a very untimely explosion. Could have been Russian retaliation. We don't know. Very, very little. When Russia hit a children's hospital in Ukraine, we heard all about that on the news, but nothing, crickets about that explosion that killed all those people on the beach. And of course, we didn't target the beach. And I say we because, There were probably U.S.
advisors.
drones that were doing the recon, that were selecting the targets, and probably, like Mark said, advisors. Because these weapon systems, it's not an iPhone. It's not quite that user friendly. So usually when you send something like that, you send it with advisors. Which, and when I say advisors, I mean U.S. troops on foreign soil, pushing the button and sending long-range missiles into Russia and killing Russians. Right. But anyway, and the war drums and the nuclear saber rattling are just off the charts right now. I'm going to read just a few headlines from the last couple of weeks. This is from Reuters on July 10th. NATO declares U.S. ballistic missile defense base in Poland mission ready. Stars and Stripes Online from July 10th. U.S. hypersonic Tomahawk units to be based in Germany. Which we don't have, that I know of. We don't have any hypersonic missiles. China and Russia do, but we don't have any that are at least that aren't top secret. Nothing that's been announced to the public that we have a hypersonic missile. But this could be something that they've got in the works that they're planning to, or I suspect we have them, and this nobody's been told that we have them. So it could be the kind of the coming out party for those. I don't know. This is from Agency France on July 10th. 66 Chinese aircraft surround Taiwan in biggest sortie of the year, and that's crossing over into Taiwan airspace, violating their airspace. Because that just keeps ramping up and ramping up with larger and larger military exercises of China intimidating Taiwan. And I suppose that the reasoning for that would be that eventually they'll attack them. And when they do finally attack them, they won't know if it's an exercise or the actual attack. New York Times, July 11th, NATO is offering Ukraine a path to membership. We know that's been one of Putin's big concerns, and one of the reasons he went into ostensibly one of the reasons he went into Ukraine in the first place. And there's a lot of people that kind of lionize Putin, and I think that we kind of get in this into this mindset of like we're watching a Hollywood movie where you got to have a good guy and a bad guy, and people need to just kind of keep in mind that it is possible that you could have two bad guys and no good guys. That's a possibility. And Putin is, he was KGB, probably a big part of Russia, kind of the USSR staging their own death, because I think he was like mayor of Moscow or something like that before the Soviet Union fell. So I think it's the new boss is the same as the old boss with the USSR and the modern day Russia. Ukraine to fly donated F-16s this summer, Lloyd Austin says, and that was in Stars and Stripes Online on July 10th. Poland to ramp up military presence at Russian border. That's Agency France, July 10th. Russia conducts mobile nuclear missile launcher drills. That's Reuters from July 5th. Russia threatens nuclear doctrine amendments amid Ukraine war. That was July 6th. What would happen if Russia detonated a nuclear bomb in space? And so that's not some conspiracy website. That's the Washington Post from July 6th. And that article, it focuses on the Cosmos 2553 satellite, which some analysts say could contain a nuclear weapon, and that's exactly how you would launch an EMP. Is you would detonate a bomb from a low Earth orbit or a high altitude detonation of a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Russia uses hypersonic missile in an attack on Kiev, and that's Associated Press from July 8th. So, the war drums they're getting louder and louder, and there's no de-escalation in sight for this thing, and so
No.
that's another really good reason to be prepared.
I really think that China and Russia are watching the election.
I do.
I guarantee they watched the debate here a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And if they think Trump is going to win, I think they're going to act before November.
Yeah.
Or before he takes office.
Yeah.
If they're going to, they do it.
Yeah. If they're the ones looking to escalate. And then also, we don't know who's pulling Biden's strings, It's obviously not the guy that can't string together a sentence that's making all the decisions.
Right.
It's somebody else. And we don't know if that person or group of people or shadow state or national security state or whoever it is, and they think they're going to lose power when Trump gets in, and they don't want to lose, and they're just going to be the spoiled kid that flips the chessboard over before November, or even after November, before January. So we don't know, but it's a lot of instability, and for folks that haven't done anything to start getting prepared yet, on prepperecon.com, and this isn't I'm not pushing a product here. This is something I give away for free.
Go for it.
But I offer a free 7-step survival plan. You go to prepperecon.com. There's a banner at the top that says free PDF. You click that banner, and I'll email you a free PDF copy of the 7-step survival plan. Because for people that are just starting out, this is the first time, it seems intimidating. And this just breaks it down into little bite-sized pieces that you can just do one thing, get that, check that off the list, do the next thing, do the next thing, do the next thing. And you do that, and you follow that plan, and you get a little bit more prepared each day. And, and I started out with the most important prep at all, because at the end of the day, 10 out of 10 people die. So regardless of how prepared you are, one day you're going to stand in front of Almighty God, and you want to make sure that you're right with Him. And with the world the way it is now, that day could come sooner rather than later. You could be at a Trump rally and get shot. You could, your Tesla could go off the road and hit a tree, and those things they don't go out until they burn themselves out. Just a heart attack, anything, and you could be just like that. You could be standing in front of your Maker, and you want to be ready for that day. And the Bible says all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And so that's nobody's good enough to get into heaven by themselves. So if you're trying to be good enough and you just feel like you're not measuring up, you're in the perfect place, because that's exactly where God wants you, is knowing that you're unable to gain His favor on your own. And then it says the wages of sin is death. So that's the bad news. And then the good news is, but the gift of God is eternal life. And then how do you get that free gift? Romans 10 says, if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised Him from the dead, you'll be saved. So the reason the good news is so good is because the bad news is so bad. And but the good news is you don't have to do it on your own. Jesus did it all on the cross.
Yep. All right.
All right. One last question.
Sure.
Before we finish her up. So of all the scenarios that we spoke about tonight,
Uh-huh.
what do you think is the most likely?
Well, the economic one, like I said, that's baked in the cake. That's inevitable. So we don't. There's no path out of it. We've crossed the Rubicon on that. With the money that was printed during COVID, the money that was printed during the 2008 debacle, pushing Russia out of SWIFT and hitting that first domino for the death of the dollar. We're seeing it in real time, and it's just going a little bit slower than it did in the Weimar Republic, because we are the global reserve currency. But we're seeing kind of this. Unlike my books, you see sort of this disorderly exit from the dollar. We're watching an orderly exit from the dollar, but the end result's the same. The dollar's going to be worthless, and that just doesn't look good when you've got a society that loses their functioning currency, or even has it devalued by 90 or 100% in a matter of a decade. It's just unsustainable and unsurvivable. So that one's baked into the cake, and it could take 5 years, it could take 10 years, it could take 20 years, but that one's coming, and there's no escaping that one. And then everything else is possible, and obviously with everything we just talked about, with the escalations in Russia and China, the EMP is possible. It's more possible now than it's ever been in our lifetimes. So
that one's been on my mind.
Me too.
So we're not guaranteed to be able to survive long enough to see the economic collapse. But if we do live long enough, that's the one we're going to get, because that one's unavoidable.
I would agree with that. So okay, we have this is fun part.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have an affiliate that's conflicted the game. Have you ever messed with a card or anything? Are you familiar with it?
Yes.
Okay, so something Mark and I have talked about, and we want to start with you. You're the guinea pig.
All right.
We want to ask you a question from the deck.
Okay.
So I've got really three decks here, Mark. I know you've got a couple.
I've got three.
I've got the Downfall deck, the Survivalist series, and the New World series. Now, the Survivalist and the New World series are based off the books. I don't know if you're familiar with them. What do you have, Mark?
I've got Downfall, Conspiracy, and the comedy one.
The comic. I've got the comic one as well too. So I'm gonna let you pick the deck, and I will ask a question out of that. Okay. Again,
Who's
Downfall
picking
deck,
the thing?
Survivalist series.
Me or Mark?
Yeah,
New World.
Oh, I'm picking the one. All right.
Yeah,
so,
you're picking it.
Downfall.
Okay. Here, I'll pull one, Mark. I've already got them out. I'll just pull one out of the deck. Let's see. Well, that's like the advertisement card.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Am I back?
Yeah.
You're back.
Blanked out for a second.
Yeah, I got you. It's okay. It happens to Joe Biden too.
Yeah, at least we
More often than you might think.
Okay. The card reads: Your son or daughter died because someone who had a lot of food. Man, this is rough.
Pick another one. Pick another one. I don't even want to go down that road. That my kid died and it was somebody else's food, because I know I'm supposed to forgive him, and I know it, and I may just not.
All right,
be
I'm gonna start over.
That level of my Christian walk yet. So maybe I don't want to go on record saying what would happen. All right, Mark. So let's pick one from your deck.
All right. Go down. Oops. I'm just going to pick one out of the.
All right.
All right. You were told by your scouts that a gang in a large spirit band headed your way. Your community leaders identified a point where you could easily kill them all. It is well known that gang travel with women and children, and to influence them would mean the death of 84 years. Your camp overwhelmed, let them due to their large numbers. Would you sacrifice their innocence in order to save yours? That's a rough.
I don't think you have to, right? I mean, because if you've got a choke point that's well outside of your area of operation, and you can set up a good sniper positions. You should be able to eliminate their shooters, and get everybody else turned around and convince them that they're heading the wrong way on a one-way street, right? So I'm always going to look for a solution like that, but at the end of the day, they're not getting to my house. The bottom line is they're not coming to my house.
Yeah.
If I've got anything to say about it, and chances are I got something to say about it.
Enzo said he couldn't understand Mark, so he couldn't hear the question.
Yeah, I've got a really bad echo. All right, you want to do another one?
You pull another card, Philip?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll pull one. Okay. This says in a modern day Jericho scenario, your religious leader has ordered you and the men of your congregation to go and ransack a nearby city for supplies and kill every living being therein, including the elderly, women and children. You prayed and fasted, but you're still on the fence, and it's time to go. Would you join in or not, and why?
Oh no, because in Revelations, one of the things Jesus talks about, he's issuing his letters to the seven churches. One of the things that comes up in all of those is that he hates the practices of the Nicolaitans, and and what the Nicolaitans are is Nico is people, and Nico is like a ruler, and when we say like a lay person, that's kind of like a common person, a lay person. They're not necessarily in the. So it's the people that rule over the people. So it's this idea of having this kind of a new priest class, because when Jesus came, he got rid of the priest class. So anytime you've got a religious leader that's setting himself up as a priest, that's something that Jesus specifically speaks against in several of the letters to the seven churches in chapter 2 and 3 of Revelations. And so that guy's got to go. So I'd probably be leading the revolt to take him down, and I'd have some group, and we'd be deciding on whether or not we were gonna kick him out the nice way or the hard way.
Well. All right.
And that's one of those things. Wouldn't even need to pray and fast.
Right.
Already know that one. That's a good thing. You read your Bible and you already got all that stuff in your head, and you already know.
Right.
you know, you already got the WWJD. You already know what Jesus would do, you know.
Right.
And sometimes he's kind. Sometimes he makes a whip, you know, and then sometimes he comes back with you know, eyes of fire and a blood-stained robe. So, you know, second time around, he's not be as nice, I don't think.
Yeah, I won't say I don't think we're too far off from that.
No.
No.
Well, Mark, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was great being on.
I
Thank you,
apologize
guys.
for all the technical
No,
difficulties.
it's okay. It's probably part of it's mine.
No idea.
But I would love to have you on again. Maybe we get this thing sorted out.
Okay, sounds good.
And I'm gonna Mark or our Mark. If you don't have anything, I'll go ahead and close it out.
I'm good.
And Mr. Goodwin, I'll just call you that. Now we'll get it figured out. If you can hang out for a second when we close out, I'd like to chat with you for a second.
Sure thing.
But everybody, thanks for hanging out in the chat. And if you have any questions, Mark, where can people find you?
Prepperrecon.com, and that's the place you can go, and you can click the banner at the top of the homepage, get your free 7-step survival plan PDF. Read through that and start getting yourself prepared. If you've been prepping for years and years and years, it's geared for you also, because a lot of preppers, they're a prepper, and 99% of their preps is guns and ammo. You know, and then there's other ones, they're a prepper, and 99% of their preps is food storage. You know, and there's another one guy, and 99% of his preps is gold and silver coins. You know, and so people kind of they'll get overweight in one area or the other, and they'll have a blind spot to something else they're completely missing. So it's good for the seasoned guy too. You can go through and kind of audit and make sure you're as up to speed as you think you are. And then also prepperrecon.com. It's got links to all my books. Philip, I appreciate your reading them, and I'm glad you're enjoying them. And all glory to God. And a lot of stuff, everything from EMPs, a lot of stuff about economic collapses, and then also a lot of end time stuff. I do, like you said, Days of Noah. I did that one. That starts out. That's a kind of a period before the Great Tribulation, and then I follow it up with another series that occurs after the rapture. That's called the Days of Elijah, and I did another 2-part series. One was called the Beginning of Sorrows. That's kind of the period leading up to the Great Tribulation, and then Kingdom of Darkness is the follow-on series to the Beginning of Sorrows. And then I did another just a 3-book series that I'm wrapping up right now. Books 1 and 2 are out, and that's the Days a Lot, and that covers a lot of the stuff that we're going through right now with the diversity, equity, inclusion, and all of the nonsense of the Biden administration right now. Department of Health and Human Services, of course, that's, we've got the deputy of Health and Human Services is a transvestite. So, you might imagine that they're going to be pushing a lot of that perversion onto our children, and they're trying to ban Christians being involved in foster care, and they're trying to make sure anybody that's going to be a foster parent is going to be gender affirming if their child wants to transition, and if not, then the state will step in and take that child away. And so I get into a lot of that stuff in the Days a Lot, because I think that's kind of that modern story, isn't it? Because in the original, the Days a Lot, you had perverted men that wanted to come into the household and steal those angels away for their own wicked desires. And so we've got the same thing, with if you've got DCF going in and taking a kid out to so they can transition because you're not a gender affirming parent. It's the same kind of thing. So so you can find all those books on prepperrecon.com, and I hope you enjoy them. Thanks so much, guys, for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you guys.
Yep. And I want to say real quick, you're talking about kind of modern times. When I first started listening to, was it the book of, not the book of Noah, Lord.
Days of Noah?
The Days of Noah, yeah. I'm sorry. They all were kind of run together.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first things, and I don't think this is a spoiler, the main character is a teacher, Noah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he is teaching the kids the other side of evolution. He's not really even teaching, he's mentioning it.
Uh-huh.
And he gets in trouble. His kid gets taken away. And,
Right.
And I was like, man, that puts a lot of things in perspective.
Sure.
It's right where we're at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would highly recommend them.
Well, thank you so much.
Again, Mark, I appreciate you being on.
All right.
And everybody else, thanks for hanging out in the chat. And we will catch you next episode.
Good night.